Chapter 1. The Dust Settles. The stagecoach rolled into Sweetbrush, Texas, kicking up clouds of red dust as it screeched to a halt in front of the general store. Grace Whitmore stepped down, her boots hitting the ground with purpose, though her heart trembled beneath her worn bodice. Her bonnet shaded her tired eyes, but it couldn't hide the deep sorrow lingering in them. At 28, Grace had buried more dreams than she'd dared to chase. A fire in San Antonio had taken her sister and brother-in-law, leaving behind 17 orphaned children between the ages of 4 and 16. The townsfolk had no idea what was coming. Sweetbrush had never seen a school teacher quite like her. In her satchel was a crumpled letter from Mayor Tillman, offering her a position to teach at the old church schoolhouse and care for the orphaned children who'd been taken in by the townspeople. She wasn't sure how she'd manage it all, but she'd try. For her sister, for the kids. Unbeknownst to her, a pair of sharp, storm gray eyes watched from the porch of the Silver Spur Saloon across the dusty street. Jacob Remington, the elusive cattle baron of Sweetbrush, leaned back in his chair, hat tipped low. His boots rested on the railing, one hand cradling a coffee mug, the other resting on the revolver strapped to his thigh. His expression unreadable, yet something in his chest stirred as he watched her straighten her spine, pick up a stubborn child's suitcase, and march toward her fate. He'd seen too many come and go, too many break under the weight of this place. But something about her steel beneath the sorrow, made him wonder if she'd be the exception. Chapter 2. Lessons in Dust and Duty. The church schoolhouse was no more than 4 walls and a sagging roof. But Grace scrubbed the floorboards, set up makeshift benches, and turned it into something resembling hope. Her 17 wards weren't blood relatives. Nieces had been her way of getting the mayor's sympathy, but they were hers now, scrappy, half-wild kids with muddy faces, broken shoes, and hearts too used to disappointment. Her days were long. She taught numbers, letters, and kindness. She patched up skinned knees and broke up fights with firm grace. She cooked, cleaned, and told bedtime stories while her back ached and her soul felt stretched thin. At night, when the town went quiet, she'd sometimes walk to the edge of town, where the prairie wind whistled through the wire fences. That's where she first ran into him. "You gonna wear out the dirt walking like that?" came a low voice. Startled, she turned. There stood Jacob Remington, shadowed in moonlight, the brim of his hat hiding his eyes. She recognized him. The cattle baron, the man with the reputation for silence, grit, and ghost-like loyalty. Some said he was a killer once. Others said he saved lives during the border wars. "I like the quiet," she said. "You look like you ain't slept in days," he replied. "I haven't." And then, without another word, he handed her a small bag of biscuits. "For the kids," he said, then turned and walked away. It became a habit. Every few nights he'd appear, sometimes with biscuits, sometimes with tools to fix the door, or nails to mend the benches. He rarely said much, but his presence became a kind of anchor. Grace didn't know what to make of him, except that he saw her, and she hadn't felt seen in a very long time. Chapter 3. When Trouble Rides In. Trouble came to Sweetbrush with the sound of hooves and the stench of whiskey. A gang of outlaws rode in one blazing afternoon, their leader, Roy Branson, a mean-eyed man with a grudge. Years ago, Jacob Remington had refused to sell him grazing land and put a bullet in Branson's shoulder when he tried to take it. Now Branson was back to finish what he started. The sheriff, old and slow, couldn't handle it. The mayor, gutless, urged calm, but Branson wasn't a man to calm. He strutted into town, guns swinging, knocking over barrels and threatening townsfolk. He made it clear Sweetbrush was his now. and he noticed Grace. 17 kids? Huh? He sneered at her in front of the church schoolhouse. You'd make a fine mama to some more. Grace didn't flinch. You're not fit to sweep the dirt from their shoes. He struck her just once, but hard. The town held its breath. And then Jacob Remington walked out of the shadows. You've got two choices, Roy, he said. Leave now or leave in a pine box. Branson spat. You think you're still the man you were 10 years ago? I don't think, Jacob said. I know. A shot rang out. But it wasn't Jacob who fell. Jacob's bullet hit through. Branson dropped, clutching his thigh. Blood soaked the dirt. His gang rode out before things got worse. The townsfolk stared as Jacob picked Grace up from where she'd stumbled, a hand on her cheek. You all right? He asked. Ow, she whispered. But I will be. Chapter 4. The Quiet Between Storms. Jacob helped more after that. He never forced his way in, but Grace began to rely on him in small ways. He taught the older boys how to fence the land around the school. He brought stew when she was too sick to cook. He even sat in on a lesson once, awkward and silent, as the children giggled at his rough drawl when he tried to read from Tom Sawyer. Grace learned his story in pieces. His wife had died young before the war, no children. He'd left the army after witnessing too much blood. He built his cattle empire alone, brick by brick, mile by mile. I used to think I didn't need anyone, he told her once as they sat watching the children run. But watching you, it makes a man wonder if maybe he was just scared. Grace turned her face away. I don't have room to be anything but strong. That's the only kind of strong that matters, he replied. Chapter 5. The Fire and the Rain. One night, lightning struck the old barn beside the schoolhouse. Flames rose like devils in the dark. Grace ran into the smoke, screaming for the children. Some had snuck out to catch fireflies and were trapped on the far side. Jacob rode in like thunder, his horse leaping the fence. He dragged 2 kids out from the smoke, his arms burned raw. Then he ran back in for more. Grace followed. Together, they pulled every last child out. When it was over, they collapsed in the dirt, coughing, hands blistered, eyes red. I thought I'd lost them, she sobbed. I thought I'd lost you, he rasped. And in that moment, under the rain that began to fall, Jacob kissed her. It was a kiss of ash and salt and desperation, and it was real. Chapter 6. A New Beginning. The town rebuilt what was lost. The mayor finally approved funds for a proper schoolhouse, and the people of Sweetbrush, moved by Grace's courage and Jacob's protection, offered to help raise the children. They weren't orphans anymore. They belonged. Grace accepted Jacob's offer to build her a home on the edge of his ranch. She refused to give up her teaching, so he built her a school right there on his land. On the day of their wedding, the children lined the aisle in white shirts and hand-picked flowers. Jacob stood tall in his suit, scarred hands shaking as he waited. You sure about this? He asked as Grace reached him. She smiled. I was sure the first night you handed me biscuits and didn't ask for anything in return. The preacher spoke. Vows were whispered. And as husband and wife turned to face their new life, the prairie wind sang through the valley like it had waited just for them. Epilogue. Years later, travelers would pass through Sweetbrush and hear the tale of the school teacher who raised 17 kids and the cattle baron who gave her the world. They'd see a little school by the river and a homestead beyond where love had grown from dust and ashes into something lasting. And they'd swear they saw the ghost of that first kiss still hanging in the twilight.